We begin tonight with breaking news on that Airindia disaster, 1 month after that devastating crash that left at least 260 people dead. Just a short time ago, investigators released the preliminary report about what went wrong. Airindia Flight 171 crashed just after takeoff on June 12th in the western city of Ahmedabad. 241 people on board died and at least 19 people on the ground as well. There was, you'll recall, that one miracle survivor who walked away from the crash. Tonight, aviation investigators say the fuel to the plane was cut off just after takeoff. In the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, why did he cut off? The other pilot responded that he did not do so. The report reads, so the big question tonight, if both pilots say they did not cut off the fuel supply, what happened? To understand what all this means as investigators look to pinpoint an exact cause of the crash, we are joined now by ABC News contributor and former pilot himself, John Nance. John, a lot of this preliminary report is focused on that plane's fuel cutoff switches. First of all, explain to us what those are and what happens if one of those switches is turned off during takeoff or even mid-flight.
Shortly after taking off at a speed of approximately 180 knots, and within 1 second of each other, both the fuel control switches on the Boeing 787 went from on to off. Shortly thereafter, one of the pilots asked the other, why did you do that? To which the second pilot says, I didn't. At that stage, the pilots moved to fighting to get the engines back on, because if the fuel switches have been switched off, then the engines are starved of fuel. They are essentially switched off and they stop thrusting or developing thrust, which you require right after you take off to ensure that the aircraft flies out. What is important to know is that the engines did develop thrust. One of the engines did restart. Remember, the 787 is designed to be able to fly out in a single engine. As I understand it, perhaps the second engine did have a successful restart as well, but it didn't start thrusting properly or enough. In fact, none of the two engines did, which is why, as the footage indicated, the Boeing 787, it took off and then it appeared to slowly go down because the engines just weren't thrusting enough and it crashed. There was a mayday call. That's already been released earlier on.
Right.
The air traffic controller did respond, but by then it was too late. Aditi, if this aircraft had a few thousand feet more of altitude and a little bit more time and a little bit more speed, they would have gotten out of this.